talking today with Arunabha from Muhaan, and this is to explore Planeterra partners that are doing work in the field of climate and biodiversity action in their own communities. We've already done a fireside chat before with one of our partners in Himachal Pradesh, called Tenacious Bees, and Tenacious Bees shared their work that they're doing to promote sustainable community-led beekeeping techniques and how community tourism supports the work that they're doing. Today, as mentioned previously, we're talking to Arunabha from Muhaan, and I'm really looking forward to this because I've had some chats with Arunabha before about the work that they're doing, and I felt thoroughly inspired after the chat. So, welcome, Arunabha.
Hi, thank you so much, Thomas, for having us and for the nice introduction. Really
No
excited to
problem
be
at
here.
all. No problem at all, Arunabha. So maybe we can start by talking about Muhaan. Where did the journey start?
So Muhan is basically based in the Eastern India. Like it started, we founded the enterprise in 2021. But like the roots of the of what we started quite back, like how we were traveling and we were staying in very remote areas and like exploring the villages. And, when I started my journey, I was going into the villages with an open mind, I didn't had any, set idea that I will do something or this and that, but I was more keen in learning, from them, like what was their culture and, what practices they were doing and a lot of things I started doing. And then the breakthrough came in 2018 when I went to Kalimpong, which is a very small district in the eastern India. And I went to a very like remote village. It was quite like uh, you know completely untouched place. Like people were still practicing traditional things and all these things. So I was quite inspired. I started living in the village, and for 1 2 years I stayed. Then I also met my co-founders, and they were also exploring. They didn't have a set idea as well. So once we started staying in these villages, we saw a lot of positives and a lot of negatives as well. Especially in our places, there is a quite a huge influx of tourism. Like because being a mountainous area, everybody has an aspiration. That they might do tourism in because their livelihood is scarce nowadays. People are shifting from agriculture. People are shifting from their traditional practices, and tourism seems to be a very easy way. Like and there is beauty everywhere. People think that tourists will come. But what we saw, the tourism that was happening in these areas was quite different. Like it was more owned by the people from outside. There was very less ownership by the common people, by the rural people, and the tourism that was there was kind of artificial. It was not much considerate about the communities, not much considerate about the culture that they had. And on the contrary, tourism was also one of the reason where people were losing their culture, because they were pretending to be something else for the tourists. They were creating places which was more similar to what people were staying in the urban areas. Like the places like the homestays or whatever they created was quite inspired from the things from the urban areas, and that was their concept. So a lot of things we saw. And one of our point was that why we were interested in going to the rural areas was the conservation for the culture. We wanted personally to conserve the culture. And then we saw that tourism was in a way affecting the cultures. But what gave us the idea was that, on the contrary, tourism, if properly done, can be a very good way to conserve also, conserve the culture. And why not do tourism, which is more community oriented, more community owned, And then we got to know about community tourism, that there is already an existing model that is being practiced, in Southeast Asia, in different places. We got to know about a different work. And then whatever experiences we had, with the communities, we tried to gather together, and then we came up with this, initiative, like Muhaan, like post-COVID, that let's do something, of our own also, because we were preaching all these ideas, but until and unless there was no action, by from our side, people don't see it practically, then people don't understand, because in rural areas theories don't work, it's mostly actions. So that's why we started Muhaan, and the word Muhaan means source in Nepali, because the place where we are predominantly, there are Nepali people, and
Hmm.
even our inmates all are from the Nepali background. So we kept this word Muhaan. It's a very old word. People don't use it nowadays, but this word means source. So it's kind of a, reflective of our journey, to go to the source, see how it is and what we can do, So that is what our journey was till now.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'd like to take a little bit of a step back, because you talk about the area that you work in. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about this area. I'll bring a map up now so that you can tell us about it. Hopefully that can work. It doesn't seem like it is working for me at the moment, but I'll try again. But please talk me through a little bit about the area whilst I try and work through this technical difficulty.
So yeah, where we started is Kalimpong. It's like a very it's actually part of the Bengal. Bengal is a state in India, in eastern India, and this top part of Bengal is Darjeeling, Kalimpong, all these places. So Darjeeling is already very famous, mountain area, and then Kalimpong is a very new area. People don't know much about it. That's where we started, and then so currently, we work in this. The map you're showing is complete Eastern Belt, Eastern
Hmm.
Himalayas. It's called, So we work in different places in this Eastern Himalayan belt. And one thing why we're doing is because we are from this area. That is one thing. And secondly, this is a completely different India that is not been explored at all. When I've commonly seen, people from outside, when they think about India, it's mostly the northern parts, where there is Taj Mahal, there is Agra, and then Haridwar, Rishikesh. All these places are there, but these are one part of India, But eastern part is completely unexplored. There are so many rich culture. There are so many indigenous communities that stay there, and everybody has their own, rich history, rich heritage. And this is one of the reason why I was like, being from this area, I had a very like strong, urge, that what I can do for for these cultures, because I know that in the meantime, you know, with the modernization and everything, what how rapidly it's happening, who knows, these things will be left or not.
Yeah, and I can see it's on the border with Bhutan as well. So there must be some
Yeah.
interesting cross-cultural situations there, where there's been some migration between Bhutan and India, and there's a mix of quite an interesting mix of culture.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a very interesting thing you said, because the part where we are, it's completely in between Nepal and Bhutan. So there's a like a very interesting, mix. Especially in some places, it's completely at the border of Bhutan, where we work, and there's some interesting, cultural exchange that happened, and and that has shaped up unique stories, from these places. So there's the influence of Bhutan, there's the influence of Tibet, there's the influence of Nepal, there's the influence of this indigenous populations in here, especially places like Arunachal and Assam and this northeastern belt. There are so many tribes, like So everybody has their own story, and then there is this confluence happening between these cultures.
And I can see also that there's a major waterway that goes through the area. So the communities around that area rely heavily on the waterways that come through there.
Right, right, right. So that's a river. You're showing what you're showing is Brahmaputra River. So it's quite a big river in the eastern area, which comes
And
from Tibet.
and it's significant for Indian culture as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. It is. It is.
Hmm. Very interesting. Very interesting. So you were talking about the actions that you've been doing through Muhaan in order to be able to create a more, let's say, authentic and immersive experience that brings the visitors and the communities together on equal footing. And I'd like to start by asking you about the initial activities that you started doing. What needs did you see that you needed to address?
Like initially, we started by conducting awareness campaigns and workshops. Basically, like we were trying to see, do the communities really know what is tourism? What is their knowledge? And try to see, because most of the time they didn't know actually what is tourism. Just they have a very vague concept, that you make this and then people will come and this kind of thing. So because these places are very eco-sensitive areas, they are in like very, this is one of the like biodiversity hotspots also, this eastern Himalayan belt. And even this culturally also, like cultural diversity is also very strong. So we have to be very careful, that how we do tourism with them. So first thing was to assess them, and like how what is their idea and if they have a correct knowledge or not. And then we try to share what we know about tourism and what can happen if you, what is the plus and what is the minus of tourism as well, because it's not only about glorifying tourism, because we are from the tourism background. It's not, doesn't mean that we have to glorify it all the time, but we have to admit that there are some negative effects as well, if not done properly. So that we made clear to these communities, beforehand. And then after that, some communities we saw like they were showing some interest, and then we saw like they had community unity, because unity is another thing which is very important for community tourism, like there usually there are some communities, then there are some other communities. I don't think not all communities can do tourism, right? Because they might not have that unity that the other community has, and they might not have that ambition, so with the communities that have succeeded and that are still working with us, I think one of the most important factors was the unity that they had. Secondly, that the aspiration that they had, because they had a collective goal and dream for their community. They wanted their village to be known, to be. So this aspiration was collective aspiration, not an individual aspiration. So when we see this kind of villages, then we start working with them, then we start seeing like what are the things they have that not other people have, what that not other communities have, what is the USP. And culturally we try to understand that where they are coming from and what is their heritage, what is the history, and then try to encourage them to bring out stories, bring out, talk to their elders, things like that. Like Parentar is one village with whom we are still working. It's been 3-4 years, and they're continuously we've been working and developing tourism. There was no tourism in that village before. It was like completely started from scratch. It was a very like from a tourist point of view, it's nothing special, it's a very ordinary village. So I mean, yeah, that's how we start working with the community, and then we try to find out stories about them, like how we can make a tourism product out of it. So talking about this Parentar village, so what was unique about them was that they were still doing paddy farming. So there's the rice farming. And I mean, it's a common thing, but in that area, it's quite uncommon because not their neighbors were not really doing, that farm. And it was only Parenter village that had, still 90% people were still doing that thing. So we thought like, why not use this agriculture, paddy as a thing, as a tourism model, and then initially we started by doing a event like which is a paddy plantation festival, which is very old traditional festival. So on a particular day, you start planting of the festival, and that time you celebrate basically, and then that is the first thing we did. And so in the slides I will show like how we did it, and then that was basically the start, and it was start of Muhaan as well, like
Okay.
how they did. And it was like the blueprint for us that became, this local festival, and then completely doing it zero waste, using local resources, and working with the community and using whatever they had as a tourism product, nothing new, so paddy
Excellent.
become the main thing,
So this is so the start was really kind of finding how to practically uplift the community and their heritage around agriculture and make it into a tourism experience at the same time. So not only celebrating the heritage of the people there for themselves, and creating this sense of pride and this sense of connection, but also opening it up to other people to come and experience that event.
Right, exactly.
Excellent. So I'm showing here a photo from your presentation. Is this one of
Right,
the paddy fields that you're talking about?
right, it is.
Uh-huh. Very nice. And so I'm going to scroll down. So we've already talked a little bit about
Right,
Muhaan and the source, that it means source, and that you're a relatively new organization, and that your mission really is about preserving rural cultures and ecosystems. Um, and I'm guessing that one of the things that you want to share about this is the storytelling element of the work that you do.
right. Yeah, like I told, the what are the authentic stories, of these places. So like from this community, we got the story of paddy, like it was not just a farming, but there were so many things that was connected to the paddy, yeah, their heritage, their history, how they evolved, and what is their identity. So a lot of stories came up, when we were trying to figure out. So storytelling is like one of the most important aspects that we do, because uh, to be honest, I am from a artistic background. I have a musical background, and then my partner, he is like a photographer, so he took all these pictures. So we already had this point of view, of bringing out these stories. So, but now it's become more in a broader concept because of tourism. Now it's more holistic and more broader. So this is the place, Parentar, where they do this paddy farming. You can see like the whole village is full with these golden colors because of the paddy. So that is what we found the most beautiful thing, of the village.
And also it's
And just
high up.
on,
It gives you a
yeah,
perspective of the area and the valley with the river. It's beautiful.
yeah, the beautiful, and then what you were saying, this river is separating Bhutan and India. So on the other side, you can see that is Bhutan.
Hmm. And what a spectacular place. I'd love to visit one day. So this is Asar Pandra, that you're sharing with me. So is this the
Right,
festival that you were talking about? This is what
right,
started Muhaan?
right. So this is the first event that was done with the community, and this is like the plantation festival. So Asar is basically a month. So that is when the monsoon starts basically. And Pandra means 15th. 15th of the month, Asar, is basically in a long, tradition, like from many years. This has been practiced in Nepal and in India where Nepali people live. So that is like an official date when you start plantation. But like, due to global warming and all these things, of course, the dates have shifted. The climate has shifted, but still people practice, this day. And, for the sake of the festival also, they plant and then they celebrate. So basically, it's a celebration of starting of paddy and also celebration of monsoon. So with monsoon, so many plantation starts, It's not only paddy, it's the plantation of the trees, it's a plantation of the vegetables and a lot of things. So it's a very significant, event.
So
It's
you
happening
mentioned,
this month.
oh, it's happening this month. Oh, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned climate change, and I'm very interested in that. So how has climate change had an impact on the communities that you work with?
I mean, climate change wise, I mean, this particular community, they still do farming, but when you go a little higher and in other parts, I mean, people have they have left farming, to be honest. I mean, very few people do it. So one of the factors I can see is climate change. There are other factors as well, but climate change can be another factor because a lot of the crops that they were doing, uh, that they kind of lost. I mean, because of the changes in the climate and like many crops like cardamom and all these things have recently they got a lot of damage because of unknown issues. They also don't know like what is happening, and in the grassroots there are no proper research, nothing. So people, it's very hard to know that what is happening, but some of the problems are common with the crops. What we see in Mexico and Southern America, same things are happening here also. So that effect is already there.
And how are the communities coping with that? Like, are they, are they tapping into traditional knowledge on how to deal with these kind of situations, or are they actually just going and migrating to urban areas because that's where the money is?
Right, right. Yeah, mostly people are migrating. Uh, the most easiest way is to go outside and do something else. So the livelihood pattern is shifting, very quickly. And of course, if they could have looked into their indigenous practices, there could have been some solutions. But uh, like you said, people are mostly, focused on going outside.
Mm-hmm. So that's one of the missions of, I guess, of the work that you're doing with Muhaan is finding ways to retain that youthful kind of energy that exists in those communities and stop the brain drain and enable people to be able to stay in their own communities and keep practicing their activities and also to keep hold of that heritage.
Right, right, right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's some way. I mean, if you can motivate these farmers, because this is a farming community whom we are working with, and in a way, it's again making it what do you say, like relevant for this age also, like for this modern age, like because this tourism angle is coming, then the youths also get interested.
Yeah.
Like, oh, people are coming to see our farming, people are coming to see the farmers, so they find it more relevant now. And after this, what we can surely ensure is that now people are more proud, in these communities about their place, about their practices or whatever, because since they had conserved this farming culture for so long, that is the reward they are getting now.
Yeah, and I can see in these photos that we can see this woman holding some leaves that she's made into some kind of craft,
Plate.
and you can see the pride in her face. She's so proud of sharing this with people. Can you talk me through this? Because I can see that there might be,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, because of the natural elements that are part of this craft, this creates this connection to nature, and there
Right.
seems to be quite a strong connection to nature in this community.
Right, right. So another interesting thing that happened, like very from the very beginning, when we did the first event. I mean, that event was done only for like the community. It was done like an internal event. It was not, we were not promoting it. No was like, there was no audience basically. It was done for them. So what they did was that one, because we had been facing this issue of, waste management in our areas, there's so much inflow of plastics and all these things. But, being a remote area, being a rural area, we don't get ready-made solutions. So one of the things we wanted to do during the event was that, uh, like minimize as much as we can, use of any plastic. So that's why you're seeing all these things, because they came up with these ideas. The lady that she is holding, that is like a plate. All the food that was given in the festival was served in this kind of plates. And you can see this button flower, which was put to the guests who came during the event. That was also made by a paddy leaf, the the husk of the corn. So this kind of things they used, to come up with creative things, small things, using whatever locally they had. And this was like like I told you, this was like the blueprint, which again become bigger and bigger in other things.
Hmm. Very interesting. Very interesting. And see, these are the women who they're
Yeah,
making
you can
those.
see this banner also. This banner has been used like 3 years till now. This is a cloth
Oh,
banner that was hand painted by an artist from there. And we are not using any plastic banners as well. I mean, we really make it like really serious about this. But it is interesting because they are getting more chance to show creativity.
absolutely, absolutely. And I guess creativity is part and parcel of the culture. It's just that there isn't necessarily that opportunity to be able to be creative. And so that starts getting lost over time. But with these kind of events, it enables the communities to rekindle and re-explore the creativity that's already within the community.
True, true. I mean, this is very traditional. This is what they have would have done if there was no alternative. That was the time from where like their ancestors were doing
Yeah.
whatever, because nature was the only solution they had, and they would take anything. But now the culture from outside is come. Now everything is very convenient. You just go to the shop and buy something. But that is reducing the creativity. But now what we are doing is that again trying to take them little back, like how they were doing before when there was no alternative. So, and now
Mm.
they are very happy also because they can understand their culture also more closely.
Great. So next, I think this is something that we really should be exploring because it's quite a big event, the Kolodai Festival. Tell me a bit about
Right,
that.
right, right. So yeah, that's what this like from a very small start of Asar Pandra. I mean, this became the harvest festival. So just to complete the full cycle, we thought why not do a harvest festival? But and since it's not raining, it's a dry season. It gives us much more scope to make it bigger, and we try to involve arts, and other things like, because like I told, we are also from an artistic background, so we wanted to have that. And so bit of a story, like since you are on this picture, um, like for this harvest festival, like Asar Pandra, we already have a story and already had a reference, because like I told, this is a traditional festival that we just revived. But in case of harvest festival, there was no traditional festival, so we tried to research about their history, history of the community. Then we understood that a long time back, even like 20-25 years back, this borders of India and Bhutan was not strict, it was quite open. So people from Bhutan also used to come, and from India, people to Bhutan also, they used to go. And what was happening at that time was that when there was a harvest time, uh, during the harvest, a lot of people used to gather, together, and there was no exchange of money. Okay, so there is no labor exchange. So basically, there was a barter system. Like, if you have a farm, I go to your farm and work for you, and then when there is a harvest in my farm, then you also come. That was the exchange thing happening. So usually when there was a harvest happening, a lot of people would come, from different villages, maybe from Bhutan people used to come. and then they work hard, whole day, and then after the harvest is done, they used to dance on top of you know, the hay. You can see these ladies; they are showing, how they used to do it. This is actually a real photograph when we were asking them to show that they used to do it. So there are some steps also, like 3 4 steps. Like you do it fast, you do it slow, and this is not just entertainment, but this is also some kind of work because this is helping to separate the grains from the hay.
Mm.
So when you are dancing on top of it, this is separating the grains, and then they just trash it, and then it's separated. So we found it very interesting, and then people were then recollecting that many of them found their partners during the harvest, and they were dancing on top of it,
Yeah, so in this picture, you can see like they are showing how they used to do this dance, and like so yeah, this gave us the whole idea, or the background, that there was something that they were using to have a festivity, kind of a celebration. So why not let's revive that thing also, and came up with this thing, festival, Koledai festival. And
Mhm.
again, we did it in the same year in the harvest festival. We did it in a very small budget, the first edition we did. And what we do in this thing is that we also invite lot of cultural groups, from the our area, from nearby areas, from the eastern belt, and on the in the daytime there is completely their performances, like folk performances and these things. And like on the basis of the zero waste thing that we already had, we do it one step ahead, like in a more bigger scale. Like everything, like from the stage to the whole thing is designed in that way. And in the evening we are curating artists from all over India, Nepal, Bhutan, all these places, and who are doing some work in their conservation of their culture, doing some work in folk music. So we try to keep the music, everything in tandem with the concept, with the environment, so it doesn't become something else. So we are very specific about the artist as well.
Very
And these
good.
two
Very
things
good.
are there, and then we do some workshops. I have not put the pictures, but in the daytime we have different workshops for the community, some for the tourists who are coming. So it has become grown quite well, like from very humble beginning. I think we had only 30 40 people to participate in the first event, and then in this third year, I mean, there were more than 180 people, from all over India, and there were people from outside as well. And then there were 3,000 to 4,000 daily visitors who came to, participate. So yeah, we are quite happy with this, with the outcome of this. And then this really helped to promote Parenta, the village that I was talking about. It
Yeah.
really came in the map, Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, that's great. That's an amazing event. It seems like it's grown exponentially as well. And if you only started it since the end of COVID, that just sounds like amazing work and very impactful as well. So let's move on to this program called Living with the Forest. This seems to be much more in line with what we're talking about today, which is about that reconnection with nature.
Right, right, right. So yeah, this living with the forest is again very close to our heart, and it's really, really something very important work that we have started. We feel because, like I told you, we are based currently in the fringe of a forest area. It's a national park, and then we were seeing, understanding, the narrative of the forest communities as well. From the time, like what was their stories, what was their narrative. And we could see these national parks, these wildlife sanctuaries, or whatever, protected areas that the government has now control of. There is a lot of disparity in the narrative. There is a there's a constant narrative of conservation, that people versus nature, and when we see this forest community, we see thousands and thousand years of evolution with the forest. They were inside the forest. There were no cities at the time. People were inside, living inside the forest, and how they were living with the forest. That is the very simple words. Living with the forest basically means how how understanding, how they were living with the forest. These communities. And again, this event we did first time in Neora Valley National Park, which is a national park based in Kalimpong district. Again, it's between Bhutan, Sikkim, and India, so it's a quite a rich area, and it was based on the communities that was living in the fringe of this forest. And then we try to show the history of the forest, the current ecology, everything through their lens, the lens of the community. Like, what is their perspective, what they are feeling, and what are the traditional knowledge they have, because they have some very critical knowledge that is very important for these times. Like you were also talking about some uh, knowledge which can help us mitigate climate change. I think these people might have, because they are indigenous people. They have been staying with the nature for so long. What they know about the nature, we don't know, because and what I have seen how their lifestyle is. Even their lifestyle is very much zero impact. Small things, even like they don't go and cut a tree and bring it. They are usually lopping or cutting, bringing, dry figs. I'm talking about firewood. I have I have seen them bringing only dry figs. So this they have already that insight, that how much less we can uh, do to the forest, and they know. So all these things helped us to make this program, which is like a 5 to 6 days experiential learning program, where people from all over the world or and different backgrounds, they can come and participate, and they can stay with the community, and they can interact with these people. So one thing I wanted to put was the concept of knowledge keepers. So knowledge keepers are basically these people we identify in these communities who have some very important knowledge. The knowledge can be about the ecology, the knowledge can be about the heritage, the knowledge can be about the spirituality of the people, the knowledge can be about the plants. So we try to identify these people, and we consider them as the experts, as the scientists of the area, and people will come to learn from them. So, for example, one of the knowledge keepers, I have put in picture of MC Rai. So he's a very, he's a local historian and a folklorist, and he has immense knowledge. And he is from a very remote area. It's called Sepi. It's nearby Nepal border. And one of the programs we do it in Sepi. So he is one of the primary resource persons. So he has an immense knowledge, and even staying in such a remote area, he has done a lot of research about his own culture. So he poses as a resource person for the program, and he discusses about the history of their people, how they have been staying for so long with the forest. And that is one resource person, is MC Rai, and he is standing in front of his library. He started it in 1970s, and which was very uncommon at that time. So
Excellent.
in the next slides, you can see other resource persons. Like in the left hand side, you see a medicine man. So he's showing, his farm where he has planted so many medicines, and he shares his indigenous knowledge of medicine. On the right hand side, there is another person. We are calling him as a silviculturist because he works in growing plants. He sells saplings as a livelihood, and he has immense knowledge about collecting saplings, raising them, about seeds, about native plants. All these things he has an immense knowledge, and which is gathered from his experience, from his ancestors. It is not a bookish knowledge that he has. It's completely different from the scientific knowledge, but we want to protect and conserve these people also through our program.
Because I guess also on a global scale, this is becoming very rare. We rely a lot on what's in the books, and we don't really rely so much on what our elders can teach us and what we can share from one generation to the next. And a lot of the knowledge that will be required in order for us to be able to overcome this climate and biodiversity crisis that we're living through on a global scale is through this knowledge that these people that you're talking about are guardians of. They're guardians of this nature, they're guardians of this knowledge.
Very true, very true.
Very interesting. And what about these people?
Yeah, so on the right hand side, you can see Asha Kumar. So he has been practicing beekeeping for 25 years. So again, a self-taught person, and immense knowledge about bees and what is the importance of bees in conserving these areas. That's coming from such a grassroots person was such a surprise for me, when I met him, and he was like so much serious, like that we have to conserve the indigenous bees, because now in our areas a lot of this European bees have been introduced, which is not native to this area, but they think that that will produce more honey, but the indigenous bees are getting maybe damaged, and then again due to climate change, also again due to plantation patterns are changing, so bees are also getting affected, but this person, people like him, they are very much serious about these things. And on the left hand side there's another young guy. So in this living with the forest, we have different components. Okay, so one component is sustainable livelihood, where we try to show a positive example, where people have even because in these fringe areas there are a lot of challenges that they have to face, and one of the thing is that I told you, because they are protected areas, there are a lot of restrictions, they cannot go inside the forest, so their livelihood practices have been damaged, all of a sudden, and they have to come up with something very new. And these people, like on the left hand side, he makes this hard cheese which is called churpi. I mean, if you come to Nepal in trekkings and all, they give this hard cheese. And so what he is doing it. He's a young guy, so we want to show a positive example as well. Like communities can come up with sustainable livelihood solutions as well, given the challenges. So in every component, in every event that we do, we keep a component about sustainable livelihoods. So in both the pictures, you can see that both are practicing sustainable livelihoods.
Excellent. And I guess it's not just creating a sustainable livelihood, but it's also continuing the knowledge that's been passed down from one generation to the next. And that is one of the most important aspects of human culture, is that ability to be able to share knowledge from one culture to the next culture. Yeah, and like I was saying before, unfortunately, in many parts of the world, we're losing a lot of that. And it's lovely. What I love about the picture on the left is, yes, there's the young guy in the front, but then there's the old guy in the back who's also very important to the picture.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was about to say. I mean, that old guy, he was a shepherd, and he used to keep his cows and goats and all these things inside the forest. He had a different history. I mean, and then again, this young guy has come. He has taken this lineage of being a shepherd and then taken it into a modern level. He is making some processing the milk. It is, I think, came from the same thing, but in a modern context. So it is very like aptly put, like what you put about the image.
Yeah, I love it so much. Great. Well, that sounds like an amazing program, the Living with the Forest. It's something that I would be very much interested. The more you talk about this, the more I want to come and visit. So I think you're going to be expecting me and my wife in the future to come and visit your program.
Definitely, yeah.
So tell me a bit about the Tuntung Kamu.
Right. So before I talk about this, I just want to say, like, Living with the Forest, I mean, what we are trying to see is that it can be a model, like model for so many other communities, So we have done it till now in 2 communities and planning to do it in more communities. So it becomes like a kind of a model for different communities to follow, which is not only for tourism but for a conservation, for conservation, and then create
Absolutely.
a network of all these people. Then we will start having a collection of all these people who are practicing these things. We will know, we will have a database. In future, we can, if we have to contribute something, help them out, then we can do it. We can have that medium. So
Yeah,
talking
and
about.
not just a model. I would say not just a model for the local area as well, but I think on a global scale, this can be very relevant to a lot of different indigenous communities around the world who are looking to preserve their cultural and natural heritage and want to make something interesting and relevant for the youth, but also for the rest of the world, so that they have the resources to be able to continue spreading this knowledge and sharing this knowledge from generation to generation.
Right, right, right. And in this age, when the forests are depleting so quickly, there's so much damage. These communities are also at a stake. They are at the risk. And we might lose all this knowledge. We might lose. That's what. It's not only about India. It's about all the indigenous communities in the world. Who have so many interesting, so many important knowledge that has evolved from thousands and thousands of years. That's my most, I feel so, deep in my heart. I feel so important that what I want to do, because that's the reason. I just think about the years and years of evolution, and the learning they have got, because they were staying inside the forest and were learning hand to hand. And suddenly, a different kind of culture is coming, which is completely devalidating that thing. That it's not, it's no, we cannot understand, so we are disregarding it. But
Yeah,
that's not the thing.
absolutely, absolutely. No, great work. So what about Tutankhamun?
So Tung Kamo, so basically, I just wanted to show like how these models helped us to, work with other communities as well in other contexts. Like living with the forest was mostly about forest communities. So Tung Kamu is another program that we use the model of living with the forest, of keeping knowledge keepers, and then taking a very immersive look into the culture and history. So we use that model to understand another community, which is a Toto tribe. So Toto is a very rare tribe in the world. I think there are only 1,600 people of Totos who stay in a place called Totopara, which is in the nearby our area. So it's in North Bengal, to be precise. So we wanted to show a different picture of this community. So previously, people only took it like in a very negative way, because they are very less. I mean, people had a very, sorry kind of feeling, that they are so less, they are very primitive. But we wanted to show like they have a rich culture. They are doing their work for their conservation. And then again, we identify these knowledge keepers. In the picture, you can see this is Dhaniram Toto. So he got a national award like Padma Shri, which is a very esteemed award in our country. Why he got? Because the Toto language didn't have a script. So it's because of his contribution. He invented the Toto script. I think it's been 4 to 5 years. And this guy, he's like a very nominally educated person. He's not much educated as well, but with his efforts and his work, they did it. And so he's also one of the knowledge keepers, for our work. So that's how we designed. And then in the next picture, another thing we usually do is the oral narratives. So another focus that we have put in our programs is about the oral narratives, because in our community the lineage is passed orally, more than anything written. Even in this kind of communities like Toto tribe, they have passed their lineage orally. So we have these sessions where we keep an interesting mix of people, from the community, and then ask to share their perception about history. So sometimes it can be individual perception, like about their life. Sometimes it can be very stories that they might have heard, or sometimes it can be exactly history, of the place. So this kind of things we are doing. So that also brings out new stories every time we do it. And like how oral narratives work, then again on the right hand side you can see this lady. So she is one of the first graduate who came from this community, because the community was so backward, at that time. Hardly people were educated, so on, like, she did, I think in 2015 or 16, I think, something, that time she was the first lady. So she is basically sharing her experience, like what it was, for a lady from her community. People were completely unaware, that Toto tribe existed, and how she felt, And then on the middle, the picture is not very clear. So there is a shaman, the Toto shaman, or a priest, who still practice, healing and rituals and all these things. So he's sharing his stories. And on the left hand side, there is Toby Anderson, who is an Australian guy who worked with the Padma Shri, Dhaniram Toto, to develop the script. So he's explaining the peculiarities of the language, of the Toto language, and gave a completely different perspective about the language, like, because he's an outsider and he's a linguist. So yeah, the whole program we designed it in taking different angle on the Toto culture.
Very interesting. So it's kind of finding a way of preserving the Toto culture through these activities, and then also enabling there to be an income of people coming and experiencing that culture, so that that money can be reinvested into preserving the culture and celebrating the culture, so that the younger generations feel a part of it and feel proud of it.
Right. So very briefly, this program, we do it in collaboration with a primary school of the area, and they are the only school who teach this Toto language. And this is a collaboration with them. So we are trying to find another alternative livelihood to support the school as well. So part of the fund can go to the school, so they can develop their learning center and their school and all these things.
Wow. That's a lot of stuff that you guys have achieved in the last few years. That's amazing to hear and very inspirational. So where can I hear more? If someone is interested in learning more about Muhaan, where can they go? I'm just sharing here a bit more details, but what would you recommend?
Right. Yeah, they can go to our website. I mean, that's www.muhaan.in. So I mean, most of the information is there. And then we are a bit active on Instagram. You can find Muhaan. You can search Muhaan and then find us. And in Instagram, we constantly update whatever current things are happening, whatever we are doing. And in more details, if you want to read about us, then we have our website. So yeah, I'm always open, and like anybody who is working in similar lines, and like we can always discuss and share ideas.
And then one last thing, Arunabha, before we go, if you had one piece of advice for a community tourism enterprise, what would it be?
I mean, like one piece of advice. Okay. Mm, for tourism, I just want to say that livelihood and money should not be the only goal for tourism. Tourism should have multiple goals, and it's better to have bigger goals, like conservation of your own culture, conservation of your own people. Then the livelihood and then money and all these aspects come, but you should have a better and higher goals for doing tourism.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Arunabha, and excellent
so
to
much,
talk to you again. And yeah, if people want to get hold of you, then of course they can either go directly to you or contact Planeterra, and we'll be very happy to put them in touch with you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. It was really nice talking to you and sharing.
Thanks, Arunabha. Until next time.
Sure.